Hello and welcome to Red Sports Talk. My name is Zach. Since we are officially less than 1 week away from the start of the NFL season, I just wanted to talk about and go over my division predictions for this upcoming NFL season. So to start off, I'm going to start with AFC North. In first place, I think it's going to be the Ravens. Second place, Bengals. Third, Browns. Fourth, Steelers. Um, obviously Ravens were the number one seed in the AFC last year. They lost a few key pieces on the offensive line, but they gained Derrick Henry in that backfield. They still have Lamar Jackson, is really good. Should be getting Mark Andrews back from injury, and hopefully Zay Flowers, their wide receiver, who was a rookie last year, can kind of take a step up and get a bigger role in that offense this year. And their defense still looks to be very good. So I do think that they are still going to win this division. I don't know if they're going to be number one seed caliber, but I do still think they're going to be very good and get double-digit wins. Next, the Bengals. The Bengals. I don't know how they're going to look this year. You got Joe Burrow coming back from injury. He seems healthy, but you also don't know when Ja'Marr Chase is going to play. As of now, less than a week away from the season, he still isn't practicing, and his status for week one is very unclear, so you don't know what that Bengals offense is going to look like. The Browns, I believe, will still have a very good defense this year, but I have questions about Deshaun Watson and how he's actually going to look, having not played a full season since he's been in Cleveland. He hasn't played a full season since 2020. Coming off an injury last season, suspension 2 years ago, sat out all the 2021 season because he didn't want to play for Houston anymore. So I just have questions about Deshaun Watson, and they aren't going to have Nick Chubb for the first at least month of the season. So you gotta wonder how that offense is going to look. But I do still think their defense is going to be pretty good, but I don't think their defense is going to carry them to be as good as the Bengals and the Ravens. And the Steelers recently announced that Russell Wilson is going to be their starter going into the season at quarterback. I think they have a very good running back tandem with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, even if he does have a little bit of a hamstring injury. We got George Pickens, who's a very good receiver, especially the type of receiver that Russell Wilson likes. Got Pat Freiermuth, could be a very good tight end. He's shown flashes, even with Kenny Pickett. He's had good seasons. And I don't know what it is. There's something about Mike Tomlin and just how he coaches where his team's just never going to have a losing record. So I do think that all four teams in the AFC North finish with a winning record. Even if that's, both the Browns and the Steelers finishing like 9-8 and, either one of them barely squeaking into the playoffs or both of them barely missing the playoffs. But I do think that all four teams will have a winning record. Now, moving on to the AFC East. The AFC East, I have winning the division, I believe, is going to be the New York Jets. Second place, I think, will be the Dolphins. Third place will be the Bills. And fourth place, obviously, is going to be the New England Patriots. Just get this out of the way now. They are in a rebuilding mode. Just drafted a rookie quarterback, third overall. Have a rookie head coach in Gerard Mayo. Jacoby Brissett is going to be their starting quarterback at the start of the season. They don't have the best receiving core, and they have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. The main thing they have going for them is their defense. I do think they're going to have a top 15 defense again, and that's going to help them stay in games. But I don't know how many wins that will get them. I don't really see them getting at best 6 wins this year. That'll be kind of best case scenario for them. Now, the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins. So obviously I think Jets win, Dolphins, Bills. I think they all finish within 1 or 2 games of each other. It could be Jets finish 12-5. 12-5. Dolphins are 11-6, and Bills are 10-7, or also 11-6, but miss the playoffs due to tiebreakers. So I think the Jets won, 7 games last year with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Their defense is so good that their defense can keep them in games. And as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy and can play average, if he can play, all he has to be is a top 16 quarterback in the league. Significantly better than what they had in Zach Wilson last year. And this is a team that can go to the playoffs with how good their defense is, with how good Garrett Wilson is, with how good Breece Hall is at running back. Like, they have all of the pieces. They just need a competent quarterback to kind of guide them there. So I think that the Jets are going to play well enough throughout the whole season and be the most consistent team in the AFC East, and they're going to win it. The Dolphins, I believe, will start off super hot like they do every single year. But, around November, December timeframe, when they have to start playing in the cold, something happens, they slow down. They were, on pace to be the number 1 seed at one point last year. Didn't win their division. They lost, the last few games of the season and wound up final week of the season losing to the Bills to come in second in the division. The Bills, I think, will kind of have the opposite issue. I think they'll start very slow, especially on offense, with bringing in basically an entirely new receiving core. The only big returning receiver they have is Khalil Shakir, who was their number 3 receiver last year. They also have Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, who are 2 very good tight ends, and James Cook is a very good running back. But you've also got Curtis Samuel, who is new to playing with Josh Allen. So you don't know how long it's going to take for them to click together. And you have Keon Coleman, who is a rookie, so he's just trying to learn the system as a whole and how to be a pro. You don't know how long it's going to take for him to catch on. So I do think the Bills will start off fairly slow, but will be able to pick it up throughout the end of the season. But I don't think it's going to be enough for them to finish above the Dolphins or the Jets. And I believe they will barely miss out on the playoffs, if not make it in as one of the last 2, 6 seed, 7 seed wild card spots. And moving on to the AFC South. AFC South, I believe the Texans are going to win. Got the Colts coming in second, Jaguars third, and the Titans last. The Titans have a young quarterback in Will Levis, 2 aging receivers in DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley could still be a pretty good receiver. Same with DeAndre Hopkins. I think they actually have 2 decent running backs in Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. I'm a little higher on Tajay Spears than on Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard has kind of shown that he can't be the workhorse running back, and we don't really know what Tajay Spears can do because he showed a lot of flashes behind Derrick Henry last season. And they went and, kind of beefed up their offensive line, got some good key pieces there. We'll see how that goes. And their season really kind of depends on the development of Will Levis and how well their first year, their rookie head coach can kind of coach this relatively young roster. They're another team that I think they could, if they get 6 or 7 wins, that's kind of, that best case scenario for them. Now, the Jaguars, they're very tricky. They started very good last season and the wheels fell off and they had a collapse and wound up finishing, I believe it wound up actually second in their division last season. But they were on pace to easily win the division in November, and then everything collapsed for them. Still got Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, who I believe is very good. Travis Etienne, good, running back. Still have Christian Kirk at receiver. Evan Ingram at tight end, very good. And brought in a couple of key piece guys like Gabe Davis, and then drafting Brian Robinson to kind of be your flashy deep threat receivers that can just help out. And their defense is pretty good, but they're just not very consistent. I don't really know which Jaguars team you're going to get. Trevor Lawrence had a lot of turnovers last season, mostly fumbles. He's a real fumble issue, so you just don't know what's going to happen with them. The Colts, I'm actually very high on the Colts. They're a team that I think could be a sleeper team this year and compete for the playoffs. Um, I don't think they're quite ready to win the division over the Texans. I think the Texans are just going to be too good. But I think the Colts, especially if Anthony Richardson can play well, or can play well enough to keep them in games, they're going to be able to Jonathan Taylor run the ball very well. See Anthony Richardson, a very good rushing quarterback. They've got Michael Pittman Jr., who's a very good number one wide receiver. Behind him, you have A.D. Mitchell, they drafted this season. Who's drafted him in the second round. So they're hoping that he has a good season for a rookie. Their defense, I've talked about this a little bit in my sleeper video, but their defense is still very good. So I think they will be able to do enough to get close to, if not get double-digit wins. So I think they're going to be somewhere around 9 to 10, maybe 11 wins, and I think they could possibly find a way to sneak into a playoff spot. And the Houston Texans. This is a team that nobody expected anything from last season. They went out and won their division. C.J. Stroud had a terrific rookie season as a quarterback. And they came in this offseason and they traded for Stephon Diggs to add that to an already very good receiving corps. They had Nico Collins, who's very good last year, and Tank Dell, who's a rookie last season, who played well above what anybody really thought he could do. He was for a lot of weeks like he was their number one wide receiver. Unfortunately, he suffered an injury towards the end of last season. He looks to be back healthy, and seeing them in the preseason doesn't really count for much, but they still look very good. And I think their defense also pretty good defense, and this is a team that I think could not just they're going to win this division and could possibly compete for the 1 seed and possibly compete for make a deep playoff run. Moving on to the final division in the AFC West. I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to finish first in that division. Obviously, they are the defending Super Bowl champions, and they just keep finding ways to get better. Their defense, absolutely super good last season, although they did lose L'Jarius Sneed in free agency. But they do still have Chris Jones. They've got good edge rushers. They've got good linebackers. They're good all around the board on defense. No real concerns about their defense. I think they're going to be very good like they were last season. And their offense maybe got better from last year. Which, Super Bowl winning team, how could you get better? They may have gotten better when healthy. If Hollywood Brown can come back healthy. He did suffer an injury in their first preseason games. He could be out for a few weeks. But, they've also still got Rashee Rice, who came on really strong towards the end of last season when he was a rookie. And now, he looks to be the number one receiver on this team with real big trust between him and Patrick Mahomes kind of developing more. Obviously, you've still got Travis Kelce, who's very good. One of the best tight ends currently in the league. You can argue he is still the best tight end in the league, and he's about to be 35 years old. Isaiah Pacheco at running back. He's a very good, tough runner. And you still have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is going to find ways to win. They're going to play well enough to win their division. I don't really think anybody's going to challenge them all that much. And then, once games start mattering, Patrick Mahomes is just a whole different player. Something that flips. So when they get into later stages of the season, if the division is close, the Chiefs are going to pull away. Now, second and third, I kind of flip-flop between the Raiders and the Chargers. First, I am going to pick the Chargers to finish second in this division. I like Jim Harbaugh as a coach. I think the Chargers are another team I had a sleeper team, as are the Raiders. But I like what Jim Harbaugh can do as a coach. I like Justin Herbert. It's a very, very good quarterback, and they're going to have a good run game and a good defense. Jim Harbaugh invested in the offensive line, drafting offensive tackle Joe Alt in the first round this year to put him on the opposite side of Rashawn Slater, who is an all-pro left tackle. So an all-pro left tackle and a top 5 draft pick at right tackle who could be a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber tackle. If Justin Herbert at quarterback, you have Gus Edwards, who's a very good short yardage, run the ball, just kind of punish for defense type running back. You have J.K. Dobbins, who, when healthy, is a very good running back. And their number 3 running back, Vidal, is also very good. He's kind of the change of pace guy from what J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards can do. He's a rookie, and he was very exciting in college. Excited to see what he can do if given a chance in this backfield. Their biggest question on offense is obviously wide receiver. Their number 1 wide receiver right now is, I believe, rookie Ladd McConkey. So they have very big questions at the receiver position, but I think they're going to be able to run the ball so well and play well enough on defense that they can figure out the receiver issue as the season goes on. They are another team that, if they play Jim Harbaugh style football and grind out some wins, they're a team that could push for a playoff spot and win close to and win 9 games and end up with a winning record. So we talk about a third place team, the Vegas Raiders. Raiders, another team that I think could be a sleeper. I really like their defense with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. They also have a very good secondary, very good linebacking core as well. Their defense is very good. That is kind of the best aspect of their team. They still have Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers at receiver. They drafted tight end Brock Bowers in the first round this season to pair him up with Michael Mayer, the tight end they drafted in the second round last season, and they kind of move him all around on the offense. Their biggest concerns for me are really quarterback. They assigned Gardner. They're going to start Gardner Minshew start the season, and I think Minshew is good enough to win them ball games and keep them in games. And then at running back, they lost Josh Jacobs, so they're going to be starting Zamir White, who hasn't started a whole lot in his career, but he's shown flashes in the few games that he has started. So I really think that if Zamir White plays well, Gardner Minshew can manage games, and Davante Adams just keeps producing like Davante Adams, and Jacoby Myers could be that really good role player, and their tight ends can play well, and their offensive line can hold up. I think this team can be right there with the Chargers. That's why I struggled to pick which team, and I kind of flip-flopped over which team was going to come in second and which team was going to come third. But I do think the Raiders finished third in this division. And finally, the Denver Broncos, I believe, will come in last. They're really another one of these teams that I could see them winning between like 6 to 8 games, and that's kind of really good for them. They obviously have a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, who's going to start for them. Got a very good coach in Sean Payton. But other than that, they're not super talented around Bo Nix. I'd say one of the only other teams that kind of has worse skill positions, at least in the AFC, is the New England Patriots. Obviously, they have Courtland Sutton, who is their number 1 receiver, but they don't really have anybody after him. They kind of have, I believe, have Josh Reynolds. He came over from Detroit. They've got Troy Franklin, who's a rookie, so you don't really know how he's going to do. I have a good offensive line. The running back's kind of a question. They've got Javonte Williams, who is 2 years removed from a serious knee injury. So hopefully he can play better than he did last season. And their defense, actually, the defense played very well at the end of last season. I think maybe they could carry that into this season, but I don't think it's going to be enough for them to finish any better than last in their division. Now moving on to the NFC, finishing first in the NFC, for the NFC North, I believe it's going to be the Lions win the division, Packers finish second, then the Bears, and the Vikings. Lions are, I believe, one of the top teams in the NFC. They had a very good team last season, and they're returning pretty much all of their key pieces from that team. Still gonna have a very good offense. One of the best offensive lines in the league. Jared Goff, who is a better quarterback than people give him credit for. And their defense, I think, should be better this season. So their biggest concern last year was their secondary. Well, they addressed that in free agency and the draft. So I think they're going to play very well and be able to win this division and possibly win 12, 13 games and have just a very, very good year. Next, I have the Packers, who are another team that they made the playoffs last season with a very young roster. They started off very slow last season with Jordan Love in his first year as a starting quarterback. So I think they start off quicker. Jordan Love, I believe, will play better, especially at the start of this season. They still have a very young receiving core, but they also, got better at the end of last season and should continue that. They brought in Josh Jacobs in free agency to be their starting running back. So he should be able to be a good workhorse running back for them. And they improved their defense just by changing up defensive coordinators. Last season, under, I believe it was Drew Barry, their defensive coordinator, their defense just didn't look good. They had games where they looked terrible. They allowed Baker Mayfield to have a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. It was the first time in history at Lambeau anybody had a perfect passer rating. They got Bryce Young to look like, a top-tier quarterback after playing not well at all for any other games in his rookie season. I think, the defense is going to play better. I think their offense is, now they have more experience going into this season, is going to still play very well. And they're a team that I think could, win 11 games, but not quite compete with the Lions for the division. Next, I have the Bears. The Bears are built to win now. They drafted Caleb Williams, number 1 overall in the draft. They drafted wide receiver Rome Odunze, 9th overall in the draft, to have that rookie quarterback wide receiver pairing. They've still got DJ Moore in that offense. They brought in Keenan Allen in the offseason. They brought in DeAndre Swift in the offseason. They built this offense to win now, and they have a very good defense still. This is a team that is expected to play well this season. Bears fans may have too high of expectations of winning the division and, being a top team in the NFC. But I do believe they are a team that can compete for the playoffs. And maybe if the Packers just, start slowly or just don't play well near the back end of the season, could sneak into the second place in this division. But I think they could win 9 to 10 games. And finally, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have a completely different quarterback from last season. Kirk Cousins left in free agency. They brought in Sam Darnold, who's going to be the starter. The hope was for him to kind of be a short-term starter, and maybe JJ McCarthy, who they drafted in the first round this year, could get some playing time this season. J.J. McCarthy had a meniscus tear and will be out for the season. So it's going to be Sam Darnold, for the starter for the foreseeable future. They still have Justin Jefferson, who's arguably still the number one receiver in the league, no matter who you give him at quarterback. They've got Jordan Addison, who's a very good number 2 receiver. They brought in Aaron Jones in free agency at running back. Kind of terrorized them while he was on the Packers. So, he could have a very good year. And they also have a very underrated good defense. But I don't think they're good enough to compete with the rest of the NFC North. NFC North is kind of a stacked division. And somebody's got to be, the 4th place team. And I do think that is the Vikings. And they could win, be the other team that wins 6 to 8 games. Okay, moving on to the NFC East. I believe the Eagles will come in first, then the Cowboys in second, the Commanders in third, and the Giants will finish last. So I believe that the Eagles will do better than the Cowboys. I just bring in new offensive coordinator and Kellen Moore. I'm excited to see how that goes. They have now 3 very good receivers in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jahan Dotson. They also have Saquon Barkley at running back behind a very good offensive line. And Jalen Hurts, who I believe is, he's I want to say top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Pushing it. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC. And possibly top 10 in the league. Their biggest concern for me is their secondary. They kind of addressed that in the draft. So, if their secondary can play well, and I believe they have a very good chance at winning. I believe they will win their division and win somewhere around 12 games. Next, I do have the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys didn't change much from last season. They didn't really bring any key pieces in. They lost some key pieces in free agency. My main concern for them is their offense. They could possibly be starting 2 rookies at very key positions on that offense. Looks like Tyler Guyton, who is their rookie first-round pick, is going to be their starting left tackle. And Cooper Beebe, another rookie, could be their starting center. Those are the 2 most important positions on the offensive line. I don't know how I feel about 2 rookies starting in those positions. They also didn't do anything to address their running game. They lost Tony Pollard in free agency, and their answer to that was to re-sign Ezekiel Elliott, who's getting up there in age, and they just recently signed Dalvin Cook, who's also getting up there in age. And also on offense, I don't really know what they have in the receiving game outside of CeeDee Lamb. They have CeeDee Lamb, the number 1 receiver. They have Jake Ferguson, the number 1 tight end, who could be their number 2 receiving target. And then you have Brandon Cooks, who was very inconsistent last season. And I don't know how he's going to look this season. So if their offense is going to really be, as good as it was last year. And on defense, they have Trayvon Diggs returning from a knee injury. But unfortunately, they lost Stephon Gilmore in free agency. I believe they lost some defensive linemen in free agency. Deron Bland, their best corner from last season, led the league in interceptions, is going to miss 6 to 8 weeks with an injury. So, I don't really know how their defense is going to look. There's a lot of question marks for me for the Dallas Cowboys. But, based on the fact that they play in the NFC East, and the NFC as a whole is kind of a weaker conference than the AFC. I think they are going to be able to get 10, 11 wins and make the playoffs. So I have the Commanders finishing third. They're a team that brought in Dan Quinn to be the new head coach. I think that will help, especially to help their defense. They have a very good running back in Brian Robinson. They also brought in Austin Eckler, very good receiving back who had a down year last year. They have Terry McLaurin, a very good receiver. Their main question marks for me is their offensive line, who gave up. I think the only team that gave up more sacks in their offensive line was the Giants. So they're on pace. At one point, the Commanders were on pace to give up the most sacks in history. And they have a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. So I believe he will play very well because he is a very mobile quarterback who has a lot of experience in college, and hopefully will be able to kind of translate some of that to the NFL and survive the season. They can win 6 games and be better than they were last year. And finally, finishing last, I've got the Giants. They've got Daniel Jones, their starting quarterback. I don't know how good he's going to be coming off a knee injury. Behind him, they've got Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, who are not very good quarterbacks either. They lost Saquon Barkley in free agency. Brought in Devin Singletary to replace him. He's an okay back. He's a starting caliber running back in the NFL. He's not Saquon Barkley. He's not going to be able to carry this offense like Saquon did. They brought in Malik Nabers. They drafted him in the first round of the NFL draft. Other than him, they have no real other receivers. So the receiving core is not very good. Defense, pretty good. Their secondary is pretty good. They have a lot of questions at linebacker. And their defensive line, their edge rushers with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau are very good. And Dexter Lawrence, a defensive tackle, should be good. But a lot of questions around this offense. I don't know how good Daniel Jones is going to be. So I don't see them winning more than 4 or 5 games. They could be the worst team in the league this year. I think, honestly, it's between them, the Patriots, and the Panthers again to be kind of the bottom 3 teams right now. Now, speaking of the Panthers, let's move on to the NFC South. So, obviously, for this division, I have the Panthers coming in last. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league because, honestly, just based on how they did last season. But it didn't look good last season. I think they will do a little better this year, but I don't know if it'll be good enough for them to not be a bottom 3 team. They have Bryce Young going into his second year. They upgraded their offensive line, so hopefully that should help them. They brought in Devontae Johnson as a receiver. That'll hopefully help Bryce Young. They still have Chuba Hubbard, I think is a pretty good running back to at least get them through until when their rookie Jonathan Brooks will hopefully be good to play. He is currently on the physically unable to perform list and will miss the first month of the season. Hopefully, when he comes back, he'll be what they expect him to be and what he looked like in college, a very good running back. They have a rookie head coach in Dave Canales, who was a very good offensive coordinator. Hopefully the offense does better, and I don't really know how that defense is going to be. They lost Brian Burns. They have a couple pieces still there, but I don't really think they're going to play all that well on defense. In third place, I've got the New Orleans Saints. They're another team that they just don't really have the pieces on offense. They have Chris Olave as the number 1 receiver. I don't really know who would be the number 2 receiver. Their number 2 receiving target is it going to be Alvin Kamara, their running back? They've got Derek Carr, who is he's an okay quarterback. He's fine. He's good enough. They have a lot of questions on offensive line. their defense is going to be good because Dennis Allen is a very good defensive coach. He's not a good head coach, so I don't. They also have a very tough schedule. They kind of have a gauntlet in 4 of their first 5 games. In second place, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers, they won the division last season, but I think they take a step back this year. I just think they're a team that, they're going to be able to win around 9 games, but I don't think that's going to be good enough to win the division this year. It's good enough to win the division last year. It's been 9 wins has kind of been good enough the past couple years. If they got to 9 wins, they would win the division. But I don't think they got worse this offseason, but I don't think they got any better. So I don't see them winning more than 9 games. And finally, in first place, I've got the Atlanta Falcons. I'm on the Falcons hype train. They got rid of Arthur Smith and brought in Raheem Morris to be their new head coach. And they brought in Kirk Cousins in free agency. If he can heal from his Achilles injury he had last season, I think, they're going to have a very good offense with Kirk Cousins, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. Their offense should be very good. They have a good offensive line. They have an underrated defense, and they brought in 2 very good pieces for their defense. In the offseason, they signed Justin Simmons, who's still a very good safety, even though he is a little bit older. And they traded for... I'm blanking on his name. They traded from the Patriots to Atlanta. Matthew Judon. Traded for Matthew Judon, who, if he's healthy this season, is going to be their best edge rusher. He's going to be, he's a very good edge rusher when healthy. So they upgraded their defense from last season. Their offense should do better now they don't have Desmond Ridder at quarterback. Or they have Kirk Cousins. Or if they need to play Michael Penix, I think their offense will still be better than it was last season. So I'm very much on the hype train for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think, they could win 10, 11 games and win this division. Now moving on to the NFC West. I have the San Francisco 49ers winning this division. I believe they're still the best team in the division. I like what they have on offense. Christian McCaffrey. They just re-signed Brandon Ayuk, or gave him an extension. They still have Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. The one thing about their offense that is scary to me is that Trent Williams is still not reported to practice. He held out for all training camp and still isn't reported to practice. I think he's their best player on their team, on their offense. He's the most, I think he is one of the key pieces at left tackle that kind of holds everything together. So, I still think they can win this division, but I'd feel a lot more confident if Trent Williams was playing. And I still really like their defense. Their defense has been good. They'll continue to be good. So I do still think the 49ers will win the division and have 12, 13 wins. Be very good. Second place, it's another division where I flip-flop between 2 teams. I keep flip-flopping between the Rams and the Seahawks. I do believe that the Rams will finish in second. I like their offense. I like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp when healthy. Very good wide receiver duo. Kyren Williams, a very good running back. They also brought in Blake Corum in the draft, who, when Kyren Williams needs a break, Blake Corum is a very good running back. He's a very good goal line back as well. They still have a good offensive line. Still have Matthew Stafford, who's, even though he's in his upper 30s, is still a very good quarterback. Their main question for me is their defense, because they did lose Aaron Donald he retired this past offseason. But in the draft, they did bring in Jared Verse from Florida State and Braden Fisk, also from Florida State, 2 good defensive linemen. They have other good young defensive linemen on their teams. I think their defense is going to be fine, but it probably will take, be slow throughout the beginning of the season to find their Aaron Donald not replacement for Aaron Donald, but kind of a couple of pieces that can kind of help alleviate what was lost from Aaron Donald retiring. And moving on to the Seahawks, who finished third. I do like this team. I do like their offense with Kenneth Walker at running back, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba as their three receivers. I believe Geno Smith is a good enough quarterback to win them games. And I think that, keep them in games and, help them get wins. And I think I like their defense. I think they're still going to have, a fairly good defense this season. So, they're another team, them and the Rams, I think will win around 10 games, and there's a possibility that 3 teams from this division make the playoffs. And finally, you have the Arizona Cardinals, who were one of the worst teams in the league last year. Kyler Murray missed the first half of the season with a knee injury. They've got him back now. They've got Trey McBride at tight end, who's a good tight end. They still got James Connors, very productive running back. And they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round. He's one of the best wide receiver prospects in recent years. They've got Michael Wilson as their other receiver, who's a rookie last season, so hopefully can take that leap this year. They don't really have a good defense. Their defense is really their main concern. They don't have a good pass rush. There's not much there really at all on that defense. They're probably going to have one of the lower ranked defenses this season. So I don't know, if the offense is going to have enough firepower to kind of keep them in every game. But I do think they're going to be better than last season. They were the fourth worst team in the league last year. I think maybe they can get out of that top 5 worst teams. I could see them winning 5-6 games. Their biggest kind of hurdle for them is the fact they have to play the NFC West. So they play arguably the toughest division in football. I think it's them and the AFC North are kind of the 2 toughest, just based on how they play each other, just based on how each team in the division plays each other. The Cardinals are a team that, I think they'll be able to stay in a lot of games, but not win a whole lot of games. Then another team, I think, if they win 6 games, that's kind of best case scenario for them. There you have it. That's my division predictions going into this season, with my division winners being the Ravens, the Jets, the Texans, the Chiefs for the AFC, for the NFC, the Lions, the Eagles, the Falcons, and the 49ers. Let me know in the comments below who you think is going to win the division, who you think the division winners are going to be, or how you think the divisions are going to shake out, how you think your favorite team is going to do this season. My favorite team is the New England Patriots, and it's hopeful optimism, but realistically thinking that if they win 6 games, that's kind of best case scenario. But you guys know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, see you.